I am here this morning or this afternoon, as has been, to talk about our two candidates and to talk briefly about why I think Barack Obama ought to be the next president of the United States. I can't do it nearly as well as he can, and he spoke at the Crow Fair. He's met with tribal leaders now 9 times, and I'm very pleased that the Native Voice has a front page above the fold story. The headline, Navajo Nation President, 100 tribal leaders endorse Obama, and talks about President Joe Shirley's endorsement and how proud and grateful we are for that endorsement. But Barack Obama was at the Crow Fair earlier this year, just recently, and spoke to some of the issues that I hope maybe I can elaborate on just a little bit as well. So with your indulgence, I would like to see if we could show that clip now.
I was born to a teenage mother, and my father left when I was 2 years old. So I didn't really know my father well. I was raised by a single mother and by my grandparents. And we didn't have a lot of money, and we didn't have much of anything. I was growing up in Hawaii at the time, and where I was growing up, there weren't a lot of black families, and so sometimes I was looked at as sort of an outsider. And so I know what it's like to be on the outside. I know what it's like to not always have been respected or to have been ignored. And I know what it's like to struggle. And that's how I think many of you understand what's happened here on the reservation. That a lot of times you have been forgotten, just like African Americans have been forgotten, or other groups in this country have been forgotten. And because I have that experience, I want you to know that I will never forget you. You will be on my mind every day that I'm in the White House. We will never be able to undo the wrongs that were committed against Native Americans. But what we can do is make sure that we have a president who's committed to doing what's right with Native Americans, being a full partner, respecting you, honoring you, working with you. That's the commitment that I am making to you, and since now I'm a member of the family, you know that I won't break my commitment to my own brothers and my own sisters. Thank you, everybody. God bless you. I'm honored to be part of you. Thank you very much.
Barack Obama speaks from the heart, and you just heard him speak once again from the heart to what he said was his extended family. We have an opportunity now to make a difference at the presidential level, and that's pretty amazing. I haven't seen a presidential candidate more committed to Indian people than the very first time I ever got involved in presidential politics as a kid, and that was with Robert Kennedy. He had an affection and an affiliation with Indian people that will never be forgotten. Well, sometime, decades, if not generations from now, I have a feeling people are going to say exactly the same thing about Barack Obama. I believe that to my core. Barack Obama probably said it best when he simply said, I'm not just asking you to believe in my ability to bring change. I want you to understand and believe in your ability to bring change. And I look forward with great anticipation, some of us meeting again on the West Front of the U.S. Capitol on January 20th of 2009, collectively standing on the West Front and watching the 44th President of the United States sworn into office, that President, Barack Obama. Thank you all very, very much.
I'm here really to tell you the other side. There's always two candidates and there's always two stories. And I'd like to talk a little bit about John McCain. another person I've called friend for a quarter of a century. Tom mentioned a number of issues that Indians are dealing with, and I can tell you over the years that Senator McCain was the chairman on 2 different occasions. He's been a member of the Indian Affairs Committee since he's been in office, as you know, in the U.S. Senate. I think he's probably met with literally every Indian leader in the country during those years at one time or another. And I can tell you that he served with distinction 2 different times as the chairman of that committee. He understands and supports the things that we talk about. I mean, when we talk about tribal sovereignty, trust responsibility, things of that nature, self-determination, those are common terms we use all the time. But you talk to an outside person that has no connection with Indian people, they won't know what you're talking about. And I can tell you that most of the people who get elected to Congress don't know what you're talking about when you suggest any one of those terms either. Senator McCain does, and he's been there for us for years and years and years on all 3 of those issues and many others. I always note with great pride, being a Korean combat veteran myself, when the flags come in. And when I think in terms of McCain, you know, you're going to hear a lot of good and a lot of bad about both candidates. You do about any candidate. That's just a tough, hardball reality of being in public office or running for public office now. About 80% of that stuff that you hear, you can just trash because it's either trying to glorify our guy or diminish the other guy. But if you were to boil John McCain down in just 3 little words so that you kind of get a handle on what his persona is, that flag reminded me of General MacArthur's last speech that he gave before West Point years ago, before he passed away. It was after he retired from the Army. And that speech was entitled, Duty, Honor, Country. Just those 3 words, Duty, Honor, Country. The speech was long, it was titled, Duty, Honor, Country. And when I see John McCain and know John McCain and the sacrifices he's made for this country, I can tell you that those 3 words really describe John McCain too. Tom talked a little bit about what Senator Obama said he wants to do. But from my standpoint, as I know the history of our people, I can tell you we've heard a lot of promises in the last 250 years. A lot of promises about what people are going to do. And how many of those promises from people in Washington were kept? A treaty is a kind of a promise, as you know. You each sign a paper, you make an agreement, you promise to do something. How many of those were kept? So from my perspective, promises and proven performance are 2 different things. Anybody can make promises, but proven performance is measurable, unlike promises. And it seems to me that the great chief of the Kiowa Tin Bears 140 years ago, there's a saying that's been attributed to him. I've heard it mentioned from other great chiefs too, but most of the time I heard it mentioned that Tin Bears once said, speaking of Washington and people from Washington, they've made us many promises, more than I can remember. They broke all but one. They promised to take our land and they took it. You've probably heard that saying too. We found out the hard way that when you trade sovereignty based on a promise, you lose your sovereignty and you don't get peace either. Senator McCain's had an extensive record on dealing with bills from job creation to Water Rights Settlement Act, particularly in his own tribes in his own state of Arizona, to the Native American Graves Protection Act, which he authored, to bills to protect our women and children from domestic violence, to those bills dealing with job creation to try to make things a little better on the economic front on reservations. And I compare that to a complete lack of any sponsorship of any bill that I can find that Senator Obama's been a prime sponsor of. Now, the job of the president, of course, isn't just about Indian country. We know that because we're part of a larger fabric called the United States of America. We have to be concerned with a lot of things besides Indian country. And I think, as the leader of the free world, I think it's really important to have somebody that has international credentials, who has been all over this country and knows many of these world leaders and has known them for years and years, the good ones and the bad ones. It's not a place where you can really do on-the-job training with very little experience. Let me stop there and just say that I'm supporting John McCain because I think he's really a true American. And also because it's a proven fact to me. He's been there for us for over 2 decades. And I would hope this time around, Indian country is going to be there for him. Thank you very much.